The rain had never felt so cold. Sarah pressed her forehead against the hospital window, watching the droplets race each other down the glass, wondering if tears could freeze before they fell. Behind her, the steady beep of machines measured out her daughter's heartbeat in cruel, mechanical precision. 3 months ago, Emma had been dancing in their kitchen, singing off-key to Taylor Swift. Now, at 15, she lay in a medically induced coma, her body fighting a battle that no child should ever have to face. The doctors had used words like rare, aggressive, and experimental treatment. But the only word Sarah heard, the only word that mattered, was the one they wouldn't say: hope. Without the surgery, without the medication that insurance deemed not medically necessary, Emma had maybe 6 weeks. With it, she might have a lifetime. The cost? $350,000. Sarah had $12,000 in her savings account and a heart full of prayers that seemed to echo unanswered into an indifferent universe. She was a 4th-grade teacher. She'd spent 20 years shaping young minds, wiping tears, celebrating victories, and believing that goodness existed in the world. But goodness didn't pay for miracle treatments. Goodness didn't negotiate with hospital billing departments. Goodness didn't save dying children. Mrs. Patterson, a nurse, touched her shoulder gently. You should go home, get some rest. We'll call if anything changes. But Sarah couldn't leave. Leaving felt like giving up. Like admitting that tomorrow might come without her daughter in it. She'd been sleeping in that chair for so long that her back had molded to its shape, her body becoming part of the vigil. That night, as Sarah finally dozed off in the uncomfortable vinyl chair, a woman she'd never met sat at a computer 3 states away, scrolling through social media. Michelle Rodriguez was a single mother herself, working 2 jobs to support her son. She had exactly $47 in her checking account and payday was 4 days away. She'd clicked on a shared post almost by accident, her tired eyes barely registering the words at first. Then she saw Emma's picture, a beautiful girl with her mother's eyes and a smile that could light up the world. Michelle reads Sarah's story, typed by Emma's aunt in desperation, and something shifted in her chest. $47 was 2 days of groceries. It was the gas to get to work. It was the buffer between making rent and being late. But Michelle thought about her own son, about how she'd move mountains for him, about how love was the only currency that truly mattered. She donated $20, leaving herself with just enough to get by. Then she hit share. Please, she wrote. I don't have much, but I gave what I could. If everyone who sees this gives just $5, we could save this girl's life. $5. That's 1 coffee. That's 1 song on iTunes. That's 1 kid's life. By morning, something remarkable had happened. Michelle's post had been shared 3,000 times. Sarah woke to her phone buzzing with notifications she didn't understand. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Money was coming in at $10, $5, $25. Strangers were writing messages, praying for Emma. Stay strong, Mama. I lost my daughter to cancer. Save yours. A retired veteran in Oklahoma sent $50 with a note. Spent my whole life fighting for freedom. She deserves the freedom to live. A teenager in California emptied his birthday money as $63 because Emma's only a year younger than me and that's not fair. A widow donated $500. Her entire stimulus check, because my Henry always said money's for the living. Sarah stood in the hospital hallway, her phone clutched in shaking hands, watching the numbers climb. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't process it. People she'd never met, people who owed her nothing, were choosing to care. But it wasn't just money. A local restaurant started donating meals to the hospital for families in the cancer ward. A high school basketball team came to visit, bringing Emma a jersey with her name on it. promising to dedicate their season to her. A country singer who lost his own sister to leukemia shared the story to his 2 million followers. The world, it seemed, was full of people who understood that humanity wasn't just about surviving, it was about making sure others could survive too. 3 weeks in, they'd raised $80,000. It was miraculous, but it wasn't enough. The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks out, and they needed the full amount up front. Sarah felt the clock ticking like a bomb in her chest. That's when Marcus Chen saw the story. Marcus was a tech entrepreneur, someone who'd built his fortune from nothing and remembered what it felt like to have everything on the line. He'd lost his own mother to a treatable illness when he was young because they couldn't afford care. He'd promised himself that if he ever had the means, he'd be the answer to someone's prayers. He called the hospital directly. "I'll cover the remaining balance," he said simply. "All of it. Whatever it takes." The hospital administrator stammered, asking for verification, for proof. Marcus sent the wire transfer before the call ended. $270,000, given without hesitation, without fanfare, without expecting anything in return except knowing that a girl would get to grow up. When Sarah found out, she collapsed. Not from despair this time, but from the crushing weight of gratitude, from the impossible reality that people, strangers, really had chosen to save her daughter. The surgery was scheduled. Emma would have her chance. The day of the operation, the waiting room was packed. Michelle Rodriguez had driven 9 hours to be there, bringing a care package and a handmade bracelet. The veteran from Oklahoma sent flowers. The teenager from California video called, leading dozens of his classmates in a prayer. The country singer posted updates to his followers. These strangers had become family, bound together by something more powerful than blood: the choice to care. 12 hours later, the surgeon emerged, exhausted but smiling. "She did beautifully," he said. "The tumor's gone. She's going to make it." Sarah fell into Michelle's arms. Two mothers who'd never met before, crying together in a hospital waiting room. Around them, strangers cheered, hugged, celebrated a victory that belonged to all of them. Emma woke up 2 days later, groggy and confused. "Mum?" she whispered. Sarah grabbed her hand, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." "What happened? Why is everyone being so nice?" Sarah laughed through her tears. "The world saved you, sweetheart. People you've never met, people who didn't have to care, they saved you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Why would they do that?" "Because you're worth saving," Sarah said. "And because people are good. Even when it's hard to see it, even when everything feels dark, people are good." Over the following months, as Emma recovered and grew stronger, Sarah made it her mission to pay forward the kindness that had saved her daughter. She started a foundation, helping other families facing impossible medical bills. Michelle became her co-director, using her experience of having almost nothing to identify who needed help most. Marcus Chen became their largest donor, but insisted on anonymity, saying, "This isn't about me. It's about them." Emma returned to school 6 months later, cancer-free and bursting with life. She started a club called $5 Fridays, where students donated $5 a week to different causes: some medical bills, disaster relief, local homeless shelters. "If $5 from strangers saved my life," she told her classmates, "imagine what we could do together." The club raised $40,000 in their first year. Emma's story had started with desperation, but it evolved into something bigger, proof that compassion was contagious, that kindness multiplied when given freely, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in individual power but in collective care. On the 1-year anniversary of her surgery, Emma stood before an assembly at her school. She was nervous, her hands shaking as she gripped the microphone. But when she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "A year ago, I was dying," she said. My mum was out of options. We were out of hope. And then something impossible happened. People I didn't know, people who had their own struggles and their own bills and their own problems. They chose to help me, not because they had to, not because they'd get anything in return, but because they believed that my life mattered. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. I used to think that one person couldn't make a difference, that our problems were too big, that the world was too broken. But I was wrong. One person can make a difference. Michelle made a difference with $20. A veteran made a difference with $50. A teenager made a difference with his birthday money. And together, they saved my life. So I'm asking you, Emma continued, her voice growing stronger, don't wait until you have a lot to give. Don't wait until it's convenient. Give what you can, when you can, where you can. Because kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's about small moments of choosing to care. It's about seeing someone struggling and saying, not on my watch. It's about being the answer to someone's prayer. She smiled, tears streaming down her face. I'm alive because people were good. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure that goodness keeps spreading. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're not alone in this world. We're surrounded by heroes. We just have to be brave enough to be one too. The assembly erupted in applause. But Emma wasn't finished. My mom always taught me that love is a verb, she said. It's not just a feeling. It's a choice. It's an action. And I've seen what happens when people choose to love strangers. When they act on behalf of someone they'll never meet. Miracles happen. Lives change. Help survives. Sarah stood in the back of the auditorium, watching her daughter, her beautiful, brilliant, alive daughter inspire hundreds of kids to choose kindness. She thought about Michelle, about Marcus, about the thousands of strangers who'd made this moment possible. She thought about how close they'd come to losing everything, and how humanity had refused to let them fall. In a world that often felt harsh and divided, Emma's story was a reminder that goodness wasn't extinct. It was alive in the hearts of people who chose, every day, to care about someone other than themselves. It was alive in the small donations and big gestures, in the prayers and the shares, in the decision to believe that every life here, every single life here was worth fighting for. Emma lived, and in her living, she became a testament to the power of human kindness, to the reality that we are our greatest hope, that salvation often comes not from above but from beside you, from the stranger who sees our pain and says, I can't fix everything, but I can help with this. That night, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed like she'd done thousands of times before, Emma grabbed her hand. Mom, do you think they know? All those people who helped you, do they know how much it mattered? Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, thinking about Michelle, about the veteran, about the teenager, about Marcus, about every single person who'd played a part in this miracle. I think they do, she said softly. Because kindness has a way of coming back to us. Maybe not in money or recognition, but in knowing that we made the world a little less dark. And that's everything. Emma smiled, her eyes already closing. I want to be like them when I grow up. You already are, sweetheart, Sarah whispered. You already are. And somewhere across the country, Michelle Rodriguez was reading an update about Emma's recovery, tears streaming down her face, thinking about how $20 and a share button had helped save her life. She thought about her own son sleeping peacefully in the next room, about how she'd want the world to show up for him if he ever needed it. She thought about how connected we all are, how a single act of kindness could ripple out and change everything. She logged onto her computer and searched for another family in need. Because once you've been part of a miracle, once you've seen what's possible when people choose love over indifference, you can't go back. You become part of the wave of goodness that refuses to let the world drown in darkness. You become, simply and powerfully, part of the reason that help survives.